Okay. Hello, everyone, or anyone. We are adding our official host. I don't have enough TikTok followers to go live, so I had to use Scriptations to get there. So I will call in the lovely Whitney Clinkscales in a moment, once she is live, and she will do the ceremonies. There we are. Whitney's been invited, and there is Whitney, and anyone who's watching. She's our official host of this event.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
So excited. What's up?
It's gonna be fun.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, most writers love to talk about themselves, so.
I was just promoting this live to my followers on my social pages. So hopefully we get some folks.
I can do that too.
Let me get some contrast going in my frame. I should move this. Now I'm rushing because I'm all behind. Perfect. Can you tell I'm a director?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell I'm not?
How's my lighting? Do I have wrapping around my face?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just have a bunch of stuff behind me that looks somewhat organized.
Good. Look great.
And
hi, welcome.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. We're just gonna wait for a couple more people to join. I'm here. My name is Whitney Clinkscales. I'm a television director. I'm here with television writer and creator of the Writer's Assistant Lab. Am I getting that right?
That is correct. That is
there
correct.
We go. Which is literally, I think, the first and only lab of its kind to really help, empower, encourage, and teach up-and-coming writers how to make it in a room, let alone how to even get in the room.
Yes.
So we can talk about that today. We're going to talk about Steven, his career, how he got started, what made him even move to LA. Yeah, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. So feel free to hang out while we wait for a couple more people to join, and then we'll get started. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat right now, and we can go ahead and answer those first. Okay, I'm also going to share this. Okay.
Good morning, Noxinator.
Hi. Oh no, it says I don't have any. It's not showing any guests for me.
I see 4.
Oh, well, that's good. Hi, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, in the comments. We can see them. I want to make sure I get every single question answered who has a question. It's not every day that you get a chance to get an hour with a writer.
Well, I mean, if you offer them a chance to procrastinate, we're probably going to take it. All right, I see a question from Noxander. What do you do to overcome writer's block? Is there a food that unlocks it? No, food usually means I'm not working. If there is a chips and dip situation, I am not typing. But I would say that I was told early on as an assistant, you can't really have writer's block if you're a professional writer. That's just not something that you can entertain. So I've kind of just never allowed it. It's always not having the time to write versus not having the idea.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself having writer's block, go for a walk.
Yes. Yeah. Can we talk about writer's block? What is writer's block? Does it even exist? And let me tell you why I'm asking. I once spoke with a director who told me that writer's block is easier than director's block because in writer's block, you have a finite set of things you can do, especially in TV, especially on a show that's already established. But as a director, you have an unlimited amount of things you can do, which paralyzes you because you can take the words on the page and turn that into anything you want, interpret it as anything you want. But as a writer, no, you're not doing that. So what do you think about that? Do you agree, disagree?
Well, I've never heard of director's block, but I would say from working on Blackish for as long as I did, that you do have directors come in and say, all right, we're going to try this. And everyone between the cast and the crew is like, we don't shoot that way. we don't do that angle. We don't take out that wall. We don't, for a variety of reasons that you wouldn't know if you're new to the show. Hopefully that comes up in a meeting, one of the many meetings of prep ahead of time to know that, yeah, we don't shoot that way, that you'd just be wasting everybody's time and we won't use it in the cut. So it's really a director on a show could meet that limitation and they have to find a way. Like I wrote the first episode that Anthony Anderson directed, which was awesome. It was so fun to work with him in that way when I'd previously only worked with him as a writer. And he was so open to everything, so collaborative. He told, Rob, our DP, he's like, Rob, you know how to shoot the show. You tell me if I'm putting the cameras in a place we're never going to use, and he wanted to do one tracking shot through the house when he and Bo got home from a school event. And I think we used some of it, but we didn't have time in a 21-minute, 30-second show for a 15-second tracking shot. So that's really the kind of what happens when you can be creative to a point, but you have to know your limitations.
Yeah. So that's so interesting because I had a whole plan, but now you're like inspiring me. So I'm just going to rapid fire. So you mentioned Anthony Anderson was directing on Blackish. Yep. Is that a show that was really warm and welcome to the cast directing? Because I believe Tracy Ellis Ross also directed.
She did. Yeah, we were open to a lot of people getting the opportunity to direct on that show. We had Rob, our DP, directed a bunch. We had our dialect coach,
Iona.
Yes. I know Iona by Iona of Gold, but that's not one. Iona Morris directed one of the best episodes of the series, and the second to last episode of the series.
Wow.
When a Black Man Cries in the Woods, written by Rob Chavis, and she just directed the heck out of it.
Wow.
She knew the crew, she knew the cast, and we really were a very tight knit group in a way. A lot of ADs got their first shots on that. Toby Burge, Anya Adams had directed a few other things, but she's gone on to amazing things. She was an AD for us who directed on that. When she came back as a director, she had known me as a script coordinator on that show. And when she came back and I was at a different chair for being a producer, she was like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you!" It's really fun.
You both got to grow up together.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot. That show brought up Laura Guten, EP in the last couple seasons, an amazing writer, one of the funniest people, if not the funniest person I've ever worked with. It was like, we're a teaching hospital. We teach people how to make TV.
I love that. We need more of you in Hollywood. We need more of you. Okay, so let's go all the way back. Let's rewind here to the beginning of little Stephen White's career. Tell us where you're from, how you got into writing, how you decided screenwriting was the thing that you wanted to do of any other mediums of writing, and why LA?
It's a lot of answers to those those various questions. So I'll try to attack it one at a time. I'm from the upstate New York, the lovely Clifton Park, New York area.
Let's
It's
go.
between Albany and Saratoga. If you know what those places are, you know where Clifton Park is. If not, I'm from the Capital District. I went to Ithaca College, which has an amazing film school, Park School, and they have an amazing internship program that sends people to LA. I was the lucky enough to win the Rod Serling Intern Award, where instead of having to find my own internship, they placed me with a writing staff.
Yeah.
And I'm just some college kid, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on some show on Lifetime? Cool. It was called Wild Card. I don't know if it's currently streaming anywhere. Let me know in the comments if you know that Jolie Fisher joint. And I was their PA / writer's assistant, not taking notes, like just getting to sit in the room a bunch. And they offered me a job, and I'm not going to do it now, but I can trace every job I've ever done to that. To who I met there, to who I worked with on the next thing, to who remembered me from this, so it goes to say, like, make connections wherever you can, because you never know when they're going to come back, and always do your best. I know that's very Boy Scoutish, which I'm not endorsed by the Boy Scouts of America, but work hard, be good, and you will get opportunities if everything works out right. So that's how it started. I knew from a very young age I wanted to be. I was always a comedian, but then I never stood up and told jokes. So how else should you do that? And there was an amazing high school teacher who read a satire I wrote for World Cult World Lit in 10th grade, and she said, "You should write for the paper." And then I started writing for the Shen Pen, one of the best high school newspapers out there, and it was transformative. I got to then do an internship for the Troy Record newspaper, and I ended up going from running around listening to various stories be pitched to writing movie reviews. Just writing, and when you get to film school at Ithaca, you have to load the cameras yourself, and I did not like that, but I liked being at my computer typing away. It's much cheaper in college to be a screenwriting focus versus a filmmaking focus. So right away, finding ways to win.
I love that. If for any of you who are on the call, I just need you to know, when I first met Steven, it was like there was so much serendipity. Like, we have so many things in common that it just like excites me. I too am from upstate New York, slightly south of Albany, Binghamton, New York. I too went to school up the road from Ithaca College in Syracuse. They know me at Syracuse. Yes, I loved Ithaca. I thought about going to Ithaca once I found out that, the famous Bob Iger is an alum of the program. So that was really exciting for me, of Walt Disney fame. And satire is one of my favorite genres. I actually also graduated from the Rod Serling School of Fine Arts in Binghamton, and where he's from. So upstate New York loves Rod Serling down. He's the creator of The Twilight Zone. If you're not familiar, you should look that up. But that really excites me, especially because a little later on, I would love to get into the difference between satire and comedy, because I recognize that there's a difference between humor and comedy. So you made it out to LA, and then what happened next? You got here and it was like up the chain, or what?
Oh no, it was not up the chain. It was an amazing path through different writers' rooms and different productions, none of which filmed in LA. The first show, Wildcard, I mentioned, shot in Toronto. The next show I worked on, which was Wildfire. Yes, the first two shows I worked on had Wild in the title. Wildfire was on ABC Family. It was basically the OC biscuit. So a girl from the wrong side of the tracks comes to a horse farm to learn how to live the best life she can. And that was shot in New Mexico, like I said. And then from there, I'm bouncing around. There's a show shooting in Mexico City. There's a show shooting in Vancouver. And it wasn't until I'm moving up from writer's assistant to script coordinator. Script coordinator, one of the hardest jobs in LA, anywhere in the world. It is also one of the few jobs that no one knows what it is.
Right.
I would often interview for the job and have to explain to the showrunner what I did. So that's always fun. And we can do script coordinator later. But I landed on filling in for the script coordinator on Saving Grace, the Holly Hunter show. I had worked on a bunch of Fox TV studio shows, and they liked me because if you don't do script coordinating well, you will get fired. Most shows won't fire you; they'll quiet fire you, and that you don't get asked back. So we'll just, instead of firing this person, we'll just not ask them back for another season.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Why don't we just jump into script coordinator now? If people are asking about it. So a script coordinator is the person in charge of formatting, proofreading, lightly editing, and distributing the scripts amongst a TV show production. Mm-hmm. So they have the football, as I like to say. You know, the showrunner will do their pass in Final Draft or Movie Magic. They'll send it to the script coordinator. The script coordinator then has to make it look like all the other scripts for the show. And the reason all the scripts have to be the same is because that's how they're timed, that's how they're budgeted, that's how they're memorized by the actors. Everybody has to do their job based on how you put the script out. And if you're bad, you cause everybody more work. And if you're good, people. That's a good question, Native Muse. I'll explain that in a second. And if you're good, people notice you and want you to help them with also, like a department coordinator will come to you, like the hair department. Hey, is the scene where we're doing so-and-so's hair still in script? And you're like, yes. Okay, they can prep for that. Or the wardrobe person, like, is the cowboy costume still in scene 7? Mm-hmm. You're like, yes, go buy the cowboy costume. And if you're not on the same location as those people, it's harder to just kind of have those quick moments. So once I was on Saving Grace, I was like, oh, I don't have to email the head of props to tell them that this is still in there. Mm-hmm. I could go over and talk to them and tell them what's in there, what might be changing, what do they need to know about in the next scene for the next thing of shooting. It just makes you so much more vital and so much more connected to everything. They will basically email the script to everybody, Native Muse, and then a PA will go to a copy room and make 500 copies, most of which are not read, before another script comes out, which is why Scriptation is an amazing invention that script coordinators like a lot, because it makes their job easier, getting to transfer notes instead of having to reprint everything.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to talk about Scriptation, because I know that this industry standard app that has been around for almost 10 years now has really changed the game, and especially in the writer's room, because of how much paper you actually go through. And I really do want to talk about that. But I'm curious about something that you said, and also, if I'm correct in understanding, another part of the script coordinator job, which is script distribution.
Yes, most of the distribution, when I say that, usually it's an email. It's you hit a button and 500 people get an email that says, here it is. So if you don't attach the file, everyone immediately knows you made a big mistake. It also tells everybody how late you've been working when you send an email at 3:50 in the morning before a day of shooting. So the script coordinator sees everything. A lot of studios will now have an online distribution through a various, Doxilla, Synchronize, where you upload the script to their service that disseminates it. I didn't like some of those because when I send an email, I see that it was sent.
Right.
When I would use those, I would hit submit, and then nothing would happen. And I actually outranked whatever system there was on an ABC show, because I sent it out through their system and it didn't go, and no one recognized it didn't go till the next day. And I'm like, I hit submit. This is why you should let me email. And they're like, Steven would do a better job just doing it himself.
Yes, Steven would. Oh my gosh. So I know that script coordinating seems to be the bridge between that next position, which, if I'm also not mistaken, is story editor.
No, so
or staff writer.
The support staff is script coordinator, writer's assistant, writer's PA, and at times the showrunner's assistant or any producer assistants that are around. They vary in who's on top. In comedy, usually the script coordinator's more senior and has more kind of hands on the script. In the drama 1 hour world, the script coordinator is doing so much more reading and proofing because the scripts are twice as long, that they're usually in what I call their cave of an office or bullpen, just reading and proofing and getting everything ready. So the writer's assistant has more of a hand because they're in the room more. And a script supervisor, Noxinator, they are the person on set, kind of making sure the lines are said the way they are. They're in charge of continuity. So what hand was I holding the mini Tabasco sauce in? And then like, what hand was it?
Why do you have a mini Tabasco sauce?
Yeah. Well, you always need to have props. And then they also will come up to, if you're a writer on set, your first day, the script supervisor will walk up to you and say, excuse me, do we say the? And you're like, the first time you kind of go, huh? And it's, do we follow every word of the script? There's certain showrunners where you have to pause for the comma. You need to do all this stuff, right? You need to say the, you need to say it as written. And then there's shows where it's like, just get it out. Just whatever works. So very, very strict versus looser. And if it's very strict, the script supervisor has the hard job of walking up to an actor and going, you didn't say the, so you could say the in the next take. And I've been asked to be a script supervisor and delightedly and politely declined.
Yeah. So it's funny that as a director, sometimes you'll get a note from the writer to tell them to say the, and then you're like, ugh, I have to go up to the actor and they're going to hate me now. You end up being like the middleman, if you will. I've been in plenty of those situations. I'm curious, is it still the case that you can work your way up to be like a script coordinator and then actually be writing by going from a PA to an assistant to a script coordinator? And then how long do you have to be a script coordinator in order to actually write an episode?
It varies show to show, day to day, season to season. You know, you need an old priest and a young priest. There is a magical elixir of there is no one way. But I worked with an amazing writer, Keisha Ainsley. She was a AD on Blackish, and then wanted to be a writer. Sat in with us. Like you'd have to be a. Oh, hold on. Oh no, we're not letting someone else co-host.
No.
Nice try. But they came. So Keisha came in and like, well, we need a writer's PA, and you'll get to learn how does this work. And she came in and crushed it. She was like the best PA I've ever seen. And then we had a shuffling of our assistants where someone got staffed. And so everyone moved up. And she's like, I can be the writer's assistant today. And we're like, can you? And she's like, yes. And she was amazing. She had taken my class, but she also has an amazing work ethic. And then she went from there to being in the Disney program, the Disney Writers Fellowship, and then came on our show, and then went through from that to being a full-time story editor. Yeah, so you can do it, but you have to work as hard or harder than Keisha did.
Yeah. Okay, so can you explain from there, like you just mentioned, story editor, there's staff writer. What are the different writers' titles? Because some people, when they hear the word producer or executive producer, they think in their head somebody who deals with production, which some EPs do deal with production and some writers do produce the episode. But when we hear the word producer, which I also am, that's also another position that varies. Some people are a producer in name only. It's that their name is so big that attaching it to your project will either get views or funding or both. And then sometimes like a line producer, for example, is strictly numbers. And then there's also like line producers and UPMs who also deal with numbers in hiring. And then there's also people on the ground, traditionally production manager, who will find the locations and deal with all the paperwork and deal with legal and all that compliance stuff. So that's the production side. But in terms of the writer side and writer producers, can you talk about these titles and what they mean?
Yes. I don't remember who it was, but on one of the behind the scenes shows, a producer said, a producer is a director who gets to sleep in. And that is more true in film than it is for TV. TV kind of writer led. But for the basic flow of positions, you are a staff writer, and then you are a story editor. A staff writer and a story editor aren't different jobs.
Right.
The staff writer has less responsibility, but it's not like they're the only writer on staff and the story editor is editing story cues. No, it's just they made up a system to pay people differently. And if I know your title is story editor, I know that you likely survived being a staff writer, so you're good, and you are on the lower end of the room. So you would have less say in how the show works. And so the staff writer, story editor, co-producer, or no, excuse me, executive story editor. Executive story editor. An executive story editor is not a story editor who has a bigger office. It's just
a promotion in number.
Yep, it's just we need another way to pay them less. So staff writer, story editor, executive story editor, then you move up to co-producer. Right. There's a co in front of your producer, but you're a producer and you're not a producer level yet. And that's important because I worked on Blackish as a staff writer for a writer all the way up to co-EP. And I have the show's been nominated many times for Emmys. I have one Emmy nomination because we had one Emmy nomination when I was above the producer level. But I got to go a bunch of times, and I've written episodes in Emmy nominated seasons, but because I was this level versus that level. So co-producer, producer, which now opens up a whole new world of things like Emmy nominations, but also you get paid now by the episode, not by the week.
Oh, that's different, right?
Yeah, it's now you go from X, there's the minimums that the WGA has, and then they'll pay you a little above the minimum the more you move up, very little depending on where you work, and you get to producer, and now you have a new rate, which is X per episode.
Right.
So I remember being a story editor, hearing that we were getting 2 more episodes, and I was like, "All right," and everyone else was like, because it wasn't for them, it wasn't that much more, but for me, it was like another month of paychecks.
Yeah.
And then it was 2 months of work for a month of paychecks. But so producer, supervising producer.
Yep.
Supervising producer is you pretty much when the adults aren't in the room, you're kind of in charge if they trust you with that, and you kind of can't be a supervising producer who doesn't contribute. If you get to that level and you're not like really pulling your weight, people notice and you won't really be around. Or you are incredibly well connected, and that's just the level that you're going to stay at.
Yeah.
And then from supervising producer, then it's co-EP.
Co-EP.
Co-executive producer.
Yeah.
You were running the room. You were running a smaller room. You were running a rewrite. You were running. Or you've been there forever, and there's no more title to go up higher. And so you are at the co-EP level. And then executive producer, which is, there is no showrunner title on screen, but they are usually the showrunner, the showrunner's partners, or what's called a vanity title. And that basically means I am this person who helped get this show made. I may not be in the room or on set all the time, but right. I am a person who's helped get this show made.
Right. And then, above them all, show creator.
Yes, who will be titled. No, but they'll still be titled as executive producer.
Gotcha.
But they get the created by, which is that's what everyone wants.
Yes, because you get money for every single episode that's written, even if you didn't write it.
Even if you decide that you don't want to work anymore, and they still make the show,
or reboot it,
or reboot it, sequel, spinoff, anything.
Yes. That is funny because it's the same with directors. Slightly different though. There aren't all those different positions in terms of the path to being a director. some directors come from being a second assistant director to a first assistant director to a director, but that's also not necessarily a common path because a first AD and a director are two completely different things.
Completely different.
The first AD is dealing with production and crew and things of that nature, whereas the director is the one dealing more with the creative vision of the projects and therefore working with the writer more creatively. And the first AD is their sidekick, their right-hand man, woman, to help them bring the project to life. So if a director is hired to direct a pilot episode, they are also given an executive producer credit.
Yep.
And then they also, just like the show creator, will be able to continue receiving wages from the run of that show. And then there's another position above director, which is the producing director, similar to the producing level writer. Sometimes a producing level writer, right, Stephen, is like supervising one of the lower level writers who is either their first time producing the episode or their first time writing an episode. With the directors, it's similar. The producing director will often direct maybe the first episode, the last episode of the season, maybe the mid-season finale, typically the really big and beefy episodes. And then they are also there for the duration of the show being shot. No matter how many guest directors they bring on, they kind of report, the guest director reports into the producing director on the project, who makes sure from a director's standpoint, the vision stays consistent throughout the run of the show.
That's it. And that's why the director gets paid, the pilot director gets paid for the rest of the series, because it is thought that they've established the visual style of the show. Right.
And there, just like in the Writers Guild, there are minimums for these types of things. You traditionally, for your entire career, don't want to be working off a minimum, or what in the writer's world you call at scale, I believe.
There's also minimums. There's the minimum for each level.
Right. It's the same with directors, and it also varies on the type of thing you're directing or writing, such as there's broadcast television, cable television, streaming television, there's short-form content, long-form content, there's unscripted, there's video games, there's all these different things that we need actors for, writers for, directors for, and that's what those labor unions work to protect, the interest of their members and ideally the future of our industry, which I would love for you to talk about next if we don't have any other questions on this. Like, I'm just curious from your point of view, having written for 20 years, you've been in the business, what are you seeing? And I don't believe you're in LA anymore, right? You ended up going back to New York. So what factored into that decision to like get out of Hollywood for a bit or for a while?
Well, my wife likes to say I'm bi-coastal. Like whenever you have a meeting, make sure they know you're bi-coastal. Like they know. But I moved back to the Capital District because my son was starting kindergarten. It kind of worked out with being on Grownish. The spinoff was fully remote. So I said, fully remote or like kind of remote? And they're like, fully remote. I go, so I never have to go to an office or set. They're like, no, we really need you in the writer's room. That was another title, consulting producer. Consulting producer is a supervising producer who gets days off, basically. they 3 days a week, you have to be there. I've worked with, I'm not going to name them, but I worked with a person, a writer, who as a showrunner was like in your seat at 9:55 instead, not 10 o'clock, early. We're here until 6 o'clock. No doctor's appointments, unless it's an emergency. Like all this, right? Like you're here to work. Let's get it done. Let's have a good time. Let's do it. And then they became a consulting producer, and their phone like went off in the room of like, your reservation at Nobu is at. He's like, you're just gonna roll in and go, how's it going today? What are we doing? Great. I love it. I'd be a consulting producer for the rest of my life. It's the most fun. Because you get to do a lot of fun stuff, but you also get to leave. that's the best. So to get back to so being a consulting producer on Grownish with writers who kind of had to work with how to make the show, not like how to like to take their stories and put them in the format that would work for the show. I could do that on this screen from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I got to do it from the Capital District. It was awesome. And then it worked out so well. I was just at a TV at the end of the screen, or at the end of the table, in the writer's room, when they went back to in person for the final season. They're like, yeah, no, you can just come do what you do. And I went out a few times to be in person. But yeah, absolutely. It's a lot like being a grandparent.
Yeah.
You get to have all the fun, and then the parents put the kids to bed.
Exactly. I'm so sorry my dog is going ham right now.
That's okay. They want to be on the chat.
They do. Whenever somebody walks by, they have to let me know that somebody's outside, just in case we're in danger. Yeah. It might be in danger.
I have had many a general meeting, a network pitch, whatever you want to call it, with landscapers outside. So
my little guest star is going to join us.
What's their name?
This is Binks.
Oh, hi, Binks.
He has been in my life for 5 years, and he loves to join me on TikTok Lives. So he'll just be here for a little while. Okay, so yeah, the second part of my question is, what the heck is going down
what's going on
in Hollywood right now?
Well, I am also known as Mr. Hollywood. No. But I have been there through 2 writer strikes. It was interesting I was not in the Writers Guild for the first one, but I walked the picket line with the show I was working on in support, and I knew kind of what was going to happen. You know, you see what happens in the first strike. So in the last strike, I was like, you're going to hear that we're the worst. The writers are the worst people in the world.
Right.
You're going to hear that they made us a very fair offer, and then we didn't take it. And you're going to hear all kinds of things that we are the writers are the reason why no one's working. And
right.
It was like A, B, C. They're like, how did you know? I'm like, well, because 1, I've been through this already. And 2, that's the playbook.
Right.
And in the 06 strike, people were like, I can't believe they would do that. And then in the next strike, people were like, yeah, that's what they do. They being the AMPTP, no disrespect. Everyone's got to get their bag. But what I think is happening right now in Hollywood is streaming burst, which a writer I worked with, Peter Saji, called right away. You always have to say when Saji was right, and Saji was right. People overexpanded. No one needed a show about, for example, my friend Adam Devine being Bumper in Berlin. We'd rather just watch Pitch Perfect. No one needed a show about the 5th character from another show having their own adventures in another city, right? So less writing jobs, less opportunities, less chances being taken on shows. So you want shows that people will watch. That's why The Pit was such a big deal, because it was a prestige show that was also a procedural, that was also something that will be on every year.
Right.
It'll be in January until they stop making it.
Right.
Every January, there'll be new episodes of The Pit. I think Noxinator, everything's a spinoff now, because if I make a show about a rancher who is struggling in the 1920s, I don't know if I want to watch that. I don't really know if I care about a rancher struggling in the 1920s in Montana. But if you call it Yellowstone Origins, well, I like Yellowstone. I'd like to know their origins. Oh, it's about a 1920s rancher in Montana? I'm in. So brand recognition is something that will get someone to watch something when there's all these things. Yes, Alex, those are facts.
Like we have,
call it Bill and Ted's Excellent Hospital,
FBI International,
FBI CIA. How do you have a show called FBI CIA?
Like every which way, shape, or form you can pick apart the FBI, there's a show. There's an F show, there's a B show, and there's an I show. Yes.
And hey, FBI producers, if you want to do FBI janitors, I'm there.
Hey,
give me a call.
I'll direct it.
And we've got a creative team right here.
Yeah.
From the producer of Blackish. You get to say that whenever I work on a show.
Yeah. And we'll both make sure the entire crew is using Scriptation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will be a paperless show, and we will save all the money that we save on paper and copiers and PA time. We will put towards more writing opportunities for staff writers and directors.
Yes. Let's talk about that a little bit, because switching to some more positive news about some of the positive changes that the industry has been making.
FBI paperless. Yes, Alex. FBI paperless. That's our show.
Yes.
Sorry.
there's been some positive changes in the last decade, especially with apps like Scriptation and Shot Lister and Set Hero, and then, Shot Deck. And then there's other like things happening, like the Green Production Book Guide. There's all of the guilds, all the labor unions, all of the sort of craft positions have a way to approach the industry from a going green perspective, whether that means like not having single serve bottles on set, and instead having reusable bottles for water, because we go through water like it's water. Also, there's been, yeah, exactly. There's been other innovations like this app Scriptation, which we're talking so much. That's who's hosting this live today with Stephen and I. And I would love for you to talk a little about the process of paper scripts versus digital scripts, and how your process as a writer has changed since the industry is now going digital.
Yeah, as a script coordinator, I used to say, and I would teach a class. That's how the Writer Assistant Lab got started, was teaching people how to be script coordinators, because it's such a specific job. And I would always say, print out a hard copy. Mm-hmm. You can't proof off a screen. Mm-hmm. And you can, because I didn't have Scriptation back then. I didn't have an Apple Pencil. And what you can do in Scriptation is so much better than what you can do with a pen and paper and tired eyes.
Yes.
It's not, you don't get the same tired screen fatigue that you used to get, especially with screens like that, like with the iPad, and with the opportunity to just annotate your script, to mark it up, to highlight, to catch all those typos, and then input that directly into your final, the football is what I call the script file, whether it's Movie Magic, Final Draft, Celtics, anything. The football is the one that makes the changes that then goes to the crew as a PDF. You send that PDF to the crew, and instead of hitting print 1,000, if they open it in Scriptation, now they have all their information right there. They are able to make all their notes. If you're an AD, you can do all your tagging. And now with, have you seen the info layers they put out?
Yes.
Oh my God. I never knew how an eighth of a page officially worked. But
I was new to dialogue numbers, because I never needed
dialogue numbers are so helpful.
But sound and script
line 56.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's real. If you haven't seen info layers and you're on this, please check it out. It's made, I will argue, an eighth of a page is how ADs and UPMs and schedulers break down how long the script is. So if you have a script that's 26 pages on a page count, that doesn't mean it's a 26-page script. It could be a 24 2/8 pages scripts, because you got to count those blocks, those empty pages, those gaps. So eighth of a page is how they count.
Right.
So check it out, Native Muse. Let us know what you think. So, and how they told us a way to let people know what they think. Is it a canny?
Yes. So if you go to www.scriptation.com/wishlist, anybody and everybody can request features for Scriptation. The new features that they dropped this week specifically were requested by hundreds of people over the years. And the team has been working mightily hard to put that together. And I believe it just launched this week. So if you're on this live, you've heard it here first exclusively. I believe the build is 5.1 in the App Store. So you can download Scriptation for free in the App Store just to feel it out, if that's something you want to try and see if it works for you. And then if you really love it, I would highly suggest going Industry Pro, because then you unlock all of these features that we're talking about. Info layers, and they have other things that help you break down a script, transfer your notes from draft to draft. It's so helpful for writers and directors and really everybody in the crew. But I literally, the first ever episode of television I directed, I used Scriptation. So in my entire television career, I've never not used Scriptation, which I love that gets to be my story. But I don't know what I was doing in the commercial world without Scriptation. Nobody had told me about it. I'm just so glad that I know now that it exists, and I can spread the word with people.
We all used it in the Blackish Writers Room and we used it on Grownish especially, where our showrunner, Courtney Lilly and Craig Doyle, different seasons, would do their notes in Scriptation and then share it with us.
Yeah.
And okay, so this is our work for the day, just by hitting a button, rather than like, oh, here, print my pages out, run them to the room. Oh, we gotta get the pages to Steven in New York. No, we had people here, we had people in Detroit, and we had people everywhere. Another great thing I just want to say real quickly about a room that's remote is if someone has a doctor's appointment, a cough, or a trip, they can still be at work because you can do the room anywhere. So it's pretty cool. And then Scriptation makes that even easier because you're all in the same thing. And I wish I had known. I didn't know then about layers. Layers would have been amazing. Layers, you do your notes for you. So these are my comedy writer notes. Well, I don't want to show my comedy writer notes to UPM, because there might be things in there that I don't want them to see.
Right.
So my production meeting notes in a completely fresh layer of the same script. And I can toggle back and forth between those. Now I'm on set. Not only can I use Scriptation for my sides, which I had sides on paper like an idiot. Then you move out to another location, and now your little paper's gone, and it had all my notes for the day. It had all my notes for post. Now I can do that in Scriptation with its own sides, which you can only make with Industry Pro.
Yeah.
And you can keep track of everything. And again, I'm going to go show the actor the new line I wrote, because in Scriptation you can write, you write by hand your own handwriting, or you can type, whichever they'll read better. But I don't want them to see my performance notes where it says "go faster." Pace it up. If you're an actor watching this, go faster.
Unless it's a pregnant pause that I've told you to do.
Yes.
When I directed the scene. It's so crazy. It's like, I would love for you to talk about the relationship between the writer-director, because on set, especially from the point of view as the person who's written and is producing the episode, because, you mentioned it earlier, writers in TV are really the bosses. The television directors are guests. Like, this show has been going on. That is the showrunner's children that they birthed with their own bare hands. And then we come in as directors like babysitters. And we're in charge of taking care of this baby and helping it to grow. But of course, not in a way that the mother or the father or whoever parents are would not.
A great example of what Whitney's talking about that I mentioned before, and then I want to talk about the collaboration, but it's a great, clear example of how this works. In Blackish, there were scenes in Dre's office at Stevens and Lido, and they were in a conference room. And new directors would go, I want to mix it up and shoot outside of the conference room. It's like, nope, you got to be inside the glass. We're not going to use anything outside of the glass. It doesn't matter what you're going to try to do. It doesn't matter what you're going to say.
Yeah.
We are going to be in the glass. So you'd see it. And then, season by season, you're like, oh, is that a new director? Yeah. Oh, they're trying to set up outside the glass.
Honestly, like what you were saying before about Scriptation, I can just tell you a little quick tidbit for anybody on the call who's interested in both writing and directing, or directing specifically. I exclusively use Scriptation, and what I like to do before I go on set, because I know I'm going to be interacting with the writer, I have a layer for my tone notes. And if you're not familiar, a tone meeting is a very intimate meeting between the showrunner, typically the first AD or the line producer's there, and the director's there. And this is when the director gets to hear the real about what they're about to get into. This is where you learn if there's going to be some problems in directing certain people. This is where you're going to learn if there's difficult crew that you're going to just have to deal with. You as a director are coming in and you're like a therapist, you're a babysitter, you're all these things. And then, of course, you're a director kind of last. But first, and the showrunner is in charge of making sure not only do you know all those things, but that you know the words that are not on the page, or the things that are not on the page that you need to know when you direct that thing, and that showrunner better see when they get your cut. So can you talk about the tone meeting, and then how you as a writer work with the director to see your vision come to life?
Absolutely. And I definitely want to be in a tone meeting with you in the future.
Okay.
That's gonna be a really fun meeting.
Yeah.
So you have all these meetings all week. You have the production meeting is last, right? And then there's the pre-production meeting, and there's all the department meetings, and there's and then finally you get to the tone meeting. The tone meeting is the director, the writer, the showrunner, the UPM, and sometimes the DP. And sometimes because otherwise the DP is filming. So you try to do it at lunch so that everybody can be there. And that is we always say on Blackish, that's the director's meeting. That's their chance to ask questions about the script, about the scenes, stuff. And you don't have, everybody around you who can disagree or report back to what you're saying. And one of my favorite showrunners, who I won't name, just for protection purposes, because I started on Blackish as
legal reasons, for NDA reasons.
So I started as script coordinator, and the script coordinator would go to the tone meetings on Blackish, because then I would know what changes to make going forward, or I would have notes on stuff that they needed to know about from clearance or from S&P or anything like that. It's the best meeting to go to.
S&P is standards and practices.
Yes,
if you're not familiar,
like you can say the word that starts with an A and has two S's after it, or you can't say it. That sort of thing.
You're not allowed to say "oh my god," and you're not allowed to say certain curse words on broadcast television, and you can't show a certain amount of blood. It's a whole bunch of rules, but
there's a whole thing. Well, I could do an entire TikTok live on being a standards and practices person on Workaholics. So coming soon. But so the tone meeting, getting to see that and be in the same meeting every week with different directors and the same showrunner, I memorized what we like to call the preamble. And the preamble is the showrunner introducing that director to their show. It's like, okay. And they would do it. And they started having me do it. like, oh, so-and-so's not here. Oh, but Steven knows the preamble. Can you do the preamble?
Yeah.
And it also taught me that if I ever have my own show, I have a good preamble, because that's going to tell this actor likes this. This actor doesn't like this. This crew member is great, but don't do that. This person might move slow, but it's worth it. This person might move fast, so check their work. All these things. Don't shoot outside the glass in Stevens and Lido.
Yeah. And
you would also get a chance to see how this director and this showrunner also called these people hostile journeymen. Guest directors were hostile journeymen.
Yep.
But just because sometimes they're awesome and sometimes they're not. So you could tell if the director asked a lot of questions, they were involved. And we had some directors be like, I don't even know why we're having this meeting. Let's just shoot it. And you're like, oh no. Or like, what is your plan for this 6-page dialogue scene at the family table?
Right.
I just get in there. Oh, you're just going to get in there. Okay, great. That's great. I'm glad that we have half a day to just get in there. And then I went from being in tone meetings as a writer with a supervising producer and being on set with a supervising producer to getting trusted to produce my own episodes.
Yeah.
And then now I'm in the tone meeting with no net. And I have to, and all those years of experience of watching other people make good choices and bad choices allowed me to get through those meetings and ask the right questions and have the right answers. And then when you're down on set, remembering what was said in the tone meeting, what was established in the tone meeting, and bringing that back. Oh, hey, remember in the tone meeting we talked about this. And like the showrunner might come to rehearsal and tell me, watch this part of the scene. This part I don't like. Make sure that happens. So I will, depending on, and I worked with amazing directors on Blackish. I have to shout out my first, Linda Mendoza. Do you know Linda? Linda Mendoza is amazing. She's one of my all-time favorite people. It really made my first episode special. Old Digger. Watch it right now on streaming. I don't know if we can say the name. But Old Digger's episode, season 2. And I worked with 2 actors as directors. One, Anthony Anderson, as mentioned. I wrote his first directed episode of television, and he could not have treated me better, could not have been a better collaborator. When you're working with the number one on the call sheet, who's also in many ways your boss, and you have to tell him, hey, I don't think we got it. He was a dream. If he asked me to write something that he would direct, I would do it tomorrow. And the other actor I worked with, who is a director, is Eva Longoria.
Mm.
And Eva Longoria is a dream.
Oh.
Because she's Eva Longoria, and she can tell the actors to do whatever they want. So she can say, pace it up. And it's like, oh, it's Eva Longoria. We kind of have to do that. And actually, I did work with another actor who was a director who was directed. It was probably my favorite week on set I ever had. And that was, besides the finale, but that's different. That's the finale. That's everybody's crying and happy and everything. But Catherine Reitman from Working Moms. She was also on the show in Stevens and Lido. And she's the daughter of Ivan Reitman. She was one of the best collaborators I could have ever asked to work with. We would, some directors get weird about you giving notes to the actors. I believe like you're not supposed to unless they say you can, or there's all kinds of stuff. But she'd be like, all right, you get them and I'll get them, and we'd meet back in the middle. And we didn't have one disagreement through prep, shooting, post. I didn't really have any disagreements with any directors I worked with, but she was really, really good.
That is amazing. Honestly, I think one of my favorite writers I've ever worked with was John Singleton.
Oh, yeah, wow.
He won the Academy Award for writing 12 Years a Slave. He also was the creator and I believe showrunner of an old ABC show called American Crime, which I loved. It only had 3 seasons. It was so good. It didn't even make sense that that's where it lived, just because of the tone and the grittiness of it at the time. But, it was Felicity Huffman and Trevor, who you know from Grownish, was also in Crime
Jackson
too. And Regina King.
Oh, John Ridley. Not John Singleton.
John Ridley. Wow. Not John Singleton. John Ridley.
Yes, I was like, wait, John Singleton didn't do... John Ridley.
Yes, John Ridley, who I'm talking about. Everybody
That's
else.
how you know this is live.
Felicity Huffman, Trevor Jackson, Regina King. And so they created this season 2 where they were dealing with a school mass pew pew, and it was just a gut-wrenching hour of television, that episode. And so I got to sit down with John Ridley to discuss his usage of real interviews with real Columbine survivors that he interspliced with the actual episode.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was Emmy nominated and all these things. And I just loved that I got to sit down with him and talk to him about the genesis behind that and how, as a writer, you even stay sane. So I know in comedy, you're writing lighthearted things, but then there was that episode of Blackish that dealt with some very heavy things that got pulled and then maybe re-put back on the market. So rather than talking about that...
You can watch that on streaming now.
Yeah, you can watch it now. But can you talk about, as a writer, how you navigate more difficult subject matter and then bring that to life in a way that's delicate to whoever it's about or whatever community, marginalized group it's about?
Well, it's, to me, what I've learned, I got to learn from some of the best writers on Blackish, like Yvette Lee Bowser, Gail Lerner, Corey Nickerson, Courtney Lilly, Kenya Barris, Jonathan Groff, not the actor, the other Jonathan Groff, Laura Gooten, Kenny Smith, not that Kenny Smith, the other Kenny Smith, and Peter Saji, who will be upset if I don't say his name. It's about honesty.
Yeah.
If you treat it as much honesty as you can, think about a funeral you've been to.
Yeah.
People laugh at funerals.
Yeah.
People say memories. People, not everything that's sad has to only be sad. Not everything that's angry makes you angry only makes you angry. Not everything that makes you cry doesn't lead to a joke or a lighter moment or make you cry more. And so if you look at the situation, whether it be a school shooting or the N-word or police brutality, if you treat it with honesty and your characters treat it how a person of that lifestyle would treat it, then you're doing a good job.
That's powerful. I want to quote this. I'm going to share this. That was such a bar. Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, so I do want to get back to the satire versus comedy question, and then I'll wrap it up with my final question of the day. So if you're in the chat or still on the live, ask your questions now. I'll try to answer as many as we can here, but I want to be respectful of your time. So yeah, can you talk about the difference on that note between satire and comedy?
Yes, comedy is what makes you laugh. I think you can, comedy is, and that's why I think there should be 2 Emmy categories going forward: half hour comedy and half hour funny. So I think that there's some comedies that are about the comments of life. But
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We lost to some of them. What's your favorite joke from? Show I can't say. But you can, just because you're a half hour doesn't mean you can't be serious, and just because you're a comedy doesn't mean you can't have serious subject matter. That's life. But a comedy, I think, should make you laugh, and then a satire, it depends on what type of satire. Is it a dry satire? A dry satire is like you almost can't even tell that something is being lampooned, spoofed, made fun of, brought to attention. Succession is one of my all-time favorite shows, but it is in many ways a satire of corporate life. And just because it's also based on another family that may or may not be real, but it satirically looks at what is, I like to say it's a good satire looks at people who take themselves too seriously.
That's good. That's good. My favorite satire on air right now is Black Mirror, going all the way back to the first episode. If you can get through the first episode of Black Mirror, then you understand what satire is.
Yes, that's a great.
What comedy is not. Yes, and so highly recommend that. Also, go back and watch what we were talking about, Twilight Zone. That was another great one. And even further back than that, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the GOAT of satire. Oh my gosh. You can go all the way back to Shakespeare. But anyways, okay. So my last question is on people who are on this call who want to break in as a writer, but rather than you just giving generic advice about how to break in, we've all heard it before. I would love for you to talk about it from the point of view of diversity, and very specifically, a category that we don't often look at first when we consider diversity. One of the writers on The Good Doctor is in a wheelchair. He's been in a wheelchair for many, many years. And I got to sit down and interview him about how he got his start in writing TV. And he talked about the hurdles he had to go through that I had never even considered. Because as we all know, a writer's PA is typically not in the room. They're outside of the room getting the writers everything they need.
They're called runners.
Literally.
I mean, it's
so,
you know.
And if that's the way to break in, when you're in a wheelchair, what showrunner is going to hire you? And so listening to his interview, I actually, for one of the first times in my entire career, cried during that interview because it was the first time I had heard something that I hadn't thought of. I thought I was so sure that I was fighting for everybody that was voiceless, but I had not considered that, and very specifically in a writer's room. So I would love for you to talk about writers who aren't traditionally set up to be writers and how they can break in.
That's a great question, and that's amazing story. Shout out to that writer. I want to say the reason people say you need to be, my go-to phrase, how do you get a writer's PA job? You have to know a writer. Okay, great. I know a writer, but I can't be a writer's PA. The reason that we recommend writer's PA is because it's entry level. And it's entry level to what? The writer's room. And I said earlier on this that I can trace every job I've ever had to my internship through Ithaca College on a Lifetime show called Wild Card. Where the first day they go, here's the coffee maker, go to the grocery store. So it was, that was the job. And it's Captain Ron, underseen classic comedy with Kurt Russell and Martin Short. Hey, you get a bad job. Do that job well, you get a better job. That's the entire film business.
Yeah.
Film and TV production, no one wants to do this. Okay. Will you do it? Okay, you do it well? All right. Well, you did a good enough job with that. that now we're going to give you another job. It's all about connections.
Yeah.
So if you are in a disability place, a place of disability that you can't do that job, what job or opportunity can you provide yourself to get to know those people so that they will read your scripts? Because I tell anybody that's like, oh, I'm just going to focus on writing and not do any of the other stuff. I go, great. When you're done, when you type the end on your script, who do you send it to? Because you don't know anybody. So you have to know people to get anywhere. And then you don't have to know people who are at the top of the executive chain. You have to know someone who's willing to take a chance on you. And that chance is taking an hour out of their day to read your script.
Yeah.
So how do you, whether you're going to be the producer's assistant. Producer's assistant is also an entry-level job. You run the producer's schedule. You don't really work on the show. You work for the producer. But when you do a good job with everything else, they will bring you in and you get to be around the writers. And then that maybe leads to a writer's assistant job. Maybe that leads to a script coordinator job. Maybe that leads to a showrunner's assistant job. I've seen people go from showrunner's assistant to staff writer because who knows the show better than the showrunner's assistant who has a great script and a better attitude. So I would say get yourself in a situation, be in a writer's group. If you're not in a writer's group and you're a struggling writer, you have to have people who read your stuff and you read their stuff. Go to any public setting of people who are like, hey, we're having a gathering about blank. If you like blank, go talk about that. Go have coffee about that. Go have a pizza party. You know, like be around people, and then opportunities will come. Because I know if I was a showrunner and the best applicant for writer's PA happened to be in a wheelchair, I'd be like, how do we make this work?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Stephen, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everyone who's still on this live. If any of you are on this live and you have any other questions for Stephen that you'd love to hear his expertise on, feel free to head over to Scriptation's TikTok account, follow us, DM us, leave comments on our videos. We will definitely make sure to get those answered for you. Stephen is always like very kind to offer his advice, so we thank you so much. I'm very appreciative of you. And I just want to add one last thing to what you said because it's so brilliant. In addition to making friends with writers, make friends with directors.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you
make friends with anybody who works on a show.
Anybody. Yes. And then you might not be able to do anything else but write, and you may say, I don't have any money, so I can't move anywhere. I don't know anyone. I don't have any connections. What do? Make friends with people who are making things. They don't even need a title. Yep. And just give it to them and tell them to make it. You're going to find a director who's in search of a script, and that script is in search for a director. So be in those writers groups, make friends with if you're in school, make friends with the film production programs. Like, you can look at somebody like Ryan Coogler as a great example who all of his friends from film school stayed with him all the way through all of his projects, going all the way back to his editor, his producer, his composer, his DP, everyone he worked with in film school and just stayed connected. So
I just want to say two things real quick. I don't want to interrupt your hosting. Native Muse, thank you for joining us. Native Muse, thank you for joining us from Hawaii. That's so cool. I've never been. A lot of great production stories there. A lot of great productions there. A lot of great, I'm a pro wrestling fan. A lot of great pro wrestling history there. That's why Young Rock was there for a while. But so thank you for all your great questions, Native Muse. And then second, you make all these friends, and maybe you don't make anything. You make friends.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing to have. And I love telling the story about I was on Eureka, the season 1 for a little bit, filling in for someone, and then the full-time script coordinator season 2. The Eureka support staff was me, Eric Wallace, and Pilar Carmen Golden.
Wow.
So Pilar Golden. Eric Wallace ran a show called The Flash. You may have heard of it. Pilar just ran a show called Beyond Black Beauty. And I wrote 17% of Blackish episodes. So we were all just support staff. I haven't talked to them in years. If I saw them tomorrow, I'd give them the big hug and I'd probably cry. Yes. I love them, and they were amazing to be around. So
how can people make friends with you? How can people find you and support your work? Is there an Instagram account for your lab so that people can join?
well, I've taken the lab because I think that the world's changing. I didn't want to be charging people for my advice at this time. So Rice Assistant Lab is kind of taking a siesta right now. But you can find me on Middle Relief on both on X. I'm Middle Relief. I'm Middle Rebeef because everyone I've worked with calls me Beef for a story of another day on Instagram and on Threads.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Follow Scriptation everywhere you're social. Follow Middle R Beef, Middle Relief. And we will come back next time with a brand new topic. So
Until next time. Thank you, Whitney. This was so fun.
thank you.